Welcome to Real AI Now, a podcast about real applications of AI in business, brought to you by 2Impulse. My name is Paulo. I'm the CEO at 2Impulse. I'm going to be your host today. If you're watching, please remember to subscribe our channel on YouTube. Just click the button below. If you're listening, just follow us on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, or Spotify. Today, I'm very excited. We have Nuno Morgadinho with us. Nuno and I go a long way back, go back a long time. We were together at school, university. Nuno is the CEO and founder of WidgiLabs. WidgiLabs is the best WordPress company that I know, one of the best companies in the market in this area, in the web, in particularly in WordPress. Welcome, Nuno. Great to have you here.
Thanks for having me, Paulo, and thanks for the nice introduction as well.
You're welcome. So, generative AI, large language models, what's going to happen to the web and to SEO?
Right, that's a great question, and I think it's on everyone's mind at the moment. So what we're seeing is a lot of people are using Gen AI to position themselves in Google, right, and to outrank competitors and to position themselves through content generation and other similar techniques. And so what we're seeing from the other side, from Google's side and other search engines, is an attempt to control this effort, right? Which, as we know, isn't straightforward to detect if a content was automatically generated. But they're trying, and they're trying real hard. And we've seen lately, as Google rolls out new updates, we're seeing some of those sites being affected and losing visibility on Google, right?
Okay.
So that means at some level they're already being able to detect those attempts to let's say work around their algorithm. But we also know as time goes by, Gen AI will become better, and it's going to be harder to detect those attempts, right? So I think in the long run, we have to remember that Google is about authority, right? And so what they're really trying to achieve from let's say almost philosophical path is they're trying to assess if the content is of value to the user, right? And they do that through a series of signals, namely not just those signals we already know they use, but other signals they're trying to implement, right? So has the user scrolled, how did the user interacted with that content, and where did the user go from there, and many other things, right? So I think they're trying real hard to let's say fulfill their mission, which is to understand and to index the world's information, right? But they're trying to improve those algorithms. So I think in the end, this is a little bit like cybersecurity, where you have the attackers and the defenders, right? You have the industry. We have one part of the industry is working on the attack front, and the other is working on the defense front, right? So we see people. I think here we will see the same. People trying to, okay, how can we shorten the time to position a new brand on the web, right? And on the market, right? That's really what they're trying to do. How can we shorten the time? Because if they had, all the time in the world, it wouldn't be a problem. But we, as companies, we want things to as fast as possible, right? So we've just launched a new product. How can we tomorrow have 5,000 people following us on the social networks? So but I think we have to be a little bit skeptical of those attempts to shorten the time, because like I said, there's really clever people on the other side trying to assess if that's what you're trying to do, and if they think that's what you're trying to do, you're going to be penalized and penalized hard, right? And so funny thing, just recently we saw WooCommerce, which is the e-commerce platform we use and we specialize in. They did a rebrand and they changed their name from WooCommerce to Woo. And with that initiative, they also redirected every WooCommerce site they had and their main site to woo.com. And that generated a huge SEO problem. And it was so big of a problem that they lost almost all visibility on Google. They had to revert back. And so I was reading about that, and obviously that's the nightmare of any SEO consultant that you don't want to happen. And I'm sure they had smart and terrific SEO consultants working with them.
Yeah.
And that still happened, right?
And they know about the web.
And they know about the web, right? So Google, in some sense, we know in terms of market share, they have more than 90% of the market, right? So they have such tremendous power, but they're also a little bit of a black box. So we don't know what's going on inside in many ways, right?
Yeah.
We know there's an algorithm. We know there's many criteria, probably some manual inspection as well going on. But I would say it's really hard to predict. So as users, what we have to do, and that's what we recommend our clients to do, is focus on providing great content, focus on publishing regularly, focusing on adding value in terms of content, right? And
so essentially doing the right thing.
Yeah, I think
not trying to cut corners, not trying to fake it, doing real content, providing real value, and that pays off in the long term.
Yes, I think.
Is this what you're saying?
I think that's one way to put it. I would rather put it in a way which is you need to conquer your space online, right?
Right.
So you need to understand what is happening, what are the right keywords you need to target, what is the content structure that works best, etc., etc. So you still need to have those insights and work with SEO and agencies to arrive at the market with the best content, right? So it's not just about let's focus on doing the right thing and publishing. It's not as easy as that, right? Because we know competitors are also betting hard on consultants and tools, etc. So in the end, it's more of like a game. You want to conquer your space, right? So you need to understand what the competitors are doing, how the market is evolving, how Google is evolving, and you need to catch the you need to go and pursue those goals of positioning, authority, etc., right? So but as an agencies, we see we work with many different clients, as you know, and we see sometimes people are and directors and managing directors, they're worried about the next big thing, but they still don't have the basic implemented,
Right.
So they're thinking, okay, how can we leverage AI to do this and that? But sometimes just simple things that there aren't they're not doing they're still not doing, right? So just having a clear web page, just having contact information, frequent questions, because there's a lot of the basics that we know work already, right? So we don't need to
we don't need AI to do that.
Yeah, I think AI it's such an interesting tool. So
Yeah.
we need to leverage it, right? But
So
what I'm advising clients is first implement the basics and then let's go to the
okay,
advanced stuff, because otherwise I
let
was talking to this client and he was telling me, oh,
let's
should we bet on storytelling?
okay.
And
Let if you allow me to interrupt,
yeah.
let's put a pin on that. I would like to still go back to the topic of SEO because to me this is and the web in general. Because let's put it this way. So we have lots of new content that's been generated by AI, and this
Mm.
actually, I suspect, I don't have the numbers, but I suspect that this will make the if there was already before generative AI, there was already an exponential growth of content in the web. With generative AI, this is going to just explode. And so I see that that is one issue. And if companies are using generated content to gain to gain authority on Google, isn't there the risk that the web is just going to become a big pile of noise? That's one concern, right? I mean, I read an article the other day about like the web is long live the web is gone, it's destroyed. I don't remember who wrote it, but I can
Well,
look it up.
the
And
original one was Wired. Wired back in 2010 was they wrote a cover article saying the web is dead, and that was because the mobile applications were coming.
okay, no, but
But
this one that I'm mentioning is because of LLMs and
yeah,
generative AI. It's already dying and it's going to die soon, or it's already dead, something like that, right?
yes. So
Now,
every
and this
couple of
is
years, every couple of years we see those articles, and they
okay,
always get it wrong.
but this is different because generated content is new. This is new. Generated content. I remember that. I mean, people trying to trick Google search engines by entering a lot of keywords on the website and then actually hiding them from the user. People would not see them, but they'll be there, just not visible, and then they will try to trick Google search engines to with those keywords to gain points there. They also tried link building and they tried, I mean, people try to hack the Google ranking algorithm always, right? And but they did it so in a sort of semi-manual way, and they hired people to build links or whatever. But now this is a whole different animal. This is a machine. These are machines generated content at the scale that I suspect even Google will have trouble to deal with,
Mm.
right? And don't you see that this is a threat to the web? Because I am concerned that with this. How do you see it?
Mm. Uh, at the moment, I'm not seeing it as a threat. I think if we look, for example, how research papers in academia and universities work, we
Yeah.
also see a large number of articles, being generated with AI, right?
Yeah.
At least partially being generated through AI.
Mhm.
And so what we have to ask ourselves is, okay, does that mean research papers are over? Are they dead? Are they not worth anymore? Of course not, right? So um, I think
But those are
there's
peer reviewed, right? Those are peer reviewed if they are
yeah,
really
but websites are also in a way peer reviewed, right? And one of the signals Google is going to have is how people are interacting with the website. So in a way,
okay. So we go back to what you said. Okay.
it is also a peer review that's being done by people, right? And there's also manual inspection going on, etc. And there's reporting of websites as well. So there's a number of tools already there. So I think
Mhm.
it's not going to be a threat. But also I think uh, people are doing that because they see the web as an important ecosystem where they need to be positioned, right? That's
Mhm.
why they're trying to influence their SEO. But another trend we're seeing is people perhaps spending less time on the web and more time inside LLMs, right? So
like ChatGPT
like
or
ChatGPT
Gemini or Bing
exactly,
search, whatever. Yeah.
and I think in the next coming months we'll see more personal assistants with those kinds of capabilities, and I think we will spend large amounts of time interacting with those instead of searching. Right? That's
Yeah.
and so there's also the concern of how can we do SEO inside those large language models, right?
Right.
So that when I say, okay, what's the best laptop for a Linux developer, and
This
the
is not clear at all.
and the ChatGPT gives me a list. How are those products positioned inside, right? And so what we're seeing is AI companies, they're in a way also relying on Google and the signals Google has to also mimic the SEO of Google to inside the LLM, right?
Mhm.
And here I'm rambling. I'm completely not sure they're doing this, but it seems like they're doing at least a little bit of this, right?
Mhm.
So so you actually have two fronts: SEO on the web and
Right.
SEO on large language models, which at the moment is completely
Mhm.
a black box. We don't know how to influence that, right?
Right. I mean,
Uh,
it's not clear at all nowadays how to directly influence an LLM to generate an answer exactly as you want it. Not by training. It's very difficult, right? So let's say to answer the question, what are the top 5 laptops, right? And you want top 5 laptops to show in a particular order, for
mm,
example, and that's based on some kind of ranking.
yeah,
And well, you can't. It's not clear at all how to train an LLM to do that. No, what you can do these days is combine a sort of search that gives you a relevance or gives you some kind of ranking
mhm,
with an LLM, and then use the output of that search and ask the LLM to generate an answer based on that. So you can
yeah,
condition the LLM to produce an answer with the results that you want, but you need to get the results from somewhere else, not from the
exactly,
LLM.
exactly.
Right? And this concept is called retrieval augmented generation. So you have to retrieve the contents from somewhere first, and then you have to instruct the LLM to generate something that is based on those results and not on something that the LLM just makes up.
Yeah,
So this is already possible nowadays now, but you have to have a good algorithm or search mechanism or search engine, whatever, that gives you a good ranking of or give at least a good sense of the authority or relevance of the results,
mm,
so that the LLM will produce something meaningful. Otherwise, the LLM, which is just
but
unpredictable.
I think what you're saying is it's already technically possible, right? But
Yes,
for a small business, it's, I would say,
difficult.
very difficult to do that, right? So even for a large business,
Mhm.
uh, so I think there's still a lot of developments we're going to see
Yeah.
down that avenue. But also, I think we have to think in terms of ecosystems, and the web is such a strong ecosystem
Mhm.
because of this consortium that they've decided on HTML, CSS, and JavaScript, and cross-browser compatibility, etc. We I think the web is, and you can compare this, for example, with other ecosystems like, for example, the PlayStation ecosystem, where every couple of years there's a new console. You need to, update dependencies. You need to release new games. There's new hardware, etc. So it's a very fast, not for the consumer perhaps, but for the companies, it's a very fast-paced ecosystem where you need to be constantly adapting yourself, right?
Mhm.
And the web, on the other hand, is such a
Stable.
slow ecosystem where things
Stable.
are very stable. So you still have websites, from the first couple of websites text only, they still work,
It's
right? And
backwards
that's
compatible all the way to the
exactly
90s. Right?
exactly. And that's very hard. We haven't seen that being done on any ecosystem, to be honest. So
Mhm.
mobile, Android,
Microsoft.
etc., Microsoft, all those
Microsoft is good at
ecosystems.
that. Microsoft, you can run a Microsoft program with MS-DOS of the 90s, early 90s. You can still run it on Windows today. So
It's still running.
Microsoft is one of
That's impressive, But
it is like it or
it is,
Microsoft or
yeah,
not, it's quite impressive that you
it's
can
quite
run
impressive, yeah.
a compiled executable compiled 30 years ago,
Yeah.
40 years
But
ago almost. You can still run it on Windows today. It's quite
it is
impressive, I have to say.
quite impressive.
Mm.
And also, I think we have to remember the way, for example, the way ChatGPT arrived to the world
Mhm.
was through the web, right?
Yeah, of
So,
course.
so that's also to show that it's such a powerful ecosystem. I think that many
Yeah.
times we
I
take it
mean,
as granted.
right, what I was talking about when I said like um, the web is dead or the web is threatened. Maybe I should rephrase that because the web is not just about content anymore. So there's the web 1.0 that was mostly about content
Mm.
only. The web 2.0 is content plus transactional stuff. So you transact, you interact, right? And not even getting into web 3, but web 2. Now, the content part is going to be highly disrupted by this generative AI thing. That's what my intuition tells me.
Mm.
I don't think that web applications are going to be disrupted by this because web applications are web applications, right?
Yeah,
But web content, right? Content, people writing content like with blogs or websites or not
but
transactional.
I think
That
also
this is
yeah.
threatened. But maybe I'm just maybe it's not, and maybe it's gonna make it more valuable even. I'm maybe.
Mm. Yeah, I think also platforms are going to be at least partially disrupted because you will be able to use AI to mimic those platforms, right? To create your own platforms very simply. Right? So
Mhm.
I think we're going to see a proliferation of more web apps and similar apps doing the same thing, but from different angles and different
Mhm.
trying to add value in different ways, right?
Mhm.
But yeah, I think the web as an ecosystem, it's actually only getting stronger, and I think AI is definitely a new tool that's going to, in a way, inspire people to use more the web
Mhm.
because it's now easy to create content. It's now easy to
Right.
produce video, images, and stuff like that. I think where that concern is coming from is are we going to have such a large pool of information which is generated by machines and so it's not important, right? I was listening to the
Like
OpenAI founder
robots
and
creating blogs
the,
automatically, and all of a sudden you
yeah,
have a million blogs.
and it's funny that so the OpenAI founder, he was saying that no one wants to watch two AIs playing chess with
With
each
each
other,
other.
right? It's simply not interesting. It's not,
No.
but we still want to
Or playing a
know.
computer game like playing
Yeah,
playing against
exactly,
fighting each other. Well, what's the
exactly. There's no point in that. But we
yeah.
still, as humans, we still want to know what other people think, right? What's their opinion on what's happening, what's their view of what's happening,
Right.
what's their approach to this and that. And so I think that human side is where um, businesses will need to focus and
Hmm.
to come to the market more, perhaps more opinionated, perhaps more, because it's not just about producing educational content anymore, right? Because there's tons of content already,
Hmm.
right? So we have kind of to go to the next level, which I think is having an opinion on things, right?
Hmm.
And many times, as businesses, I think we we are afraid of doing that, right? We're afraid of saying, okay, this thing is stupid, or this thing I think it's completely wrong, or because we're afraid a little bit of that public backslash, right?
Okay.
But we've seen, 37 Signals is one example that they're very opinionated, and they're saying things like, oh, there's no point in having software as a service. You should have software that you only pay once, and you can use it for life. And they're kind of trying to build on that opinion to sell software. So I think that's just one example, but I think that's what we need to be thinking as businesses, is how can we produce content that other humans want to consume, even if it's being generated partially, or even if we're using a tool to help us build that content. Is it something people are going to want to consume, right? And I have such a funny story around this, because back in 2019, I was looking at LinkedIn profiles, and I was seeing, okay, this person has X followers, and I was kind of doing a track record of those followers, right? And so I've selected a few profiles, like 20 or so. I recorded the number of followers they each had, and then I left that spreadsheet. I completely forgot about it. And it was only after 2 or 3 years that I came back to that spreadsheet, and I looked at the data, and I said, oh, let's see how they're doing now. And so I went and did the same thing. And I saw how each profile was growing from 2019 to 2022. And I published that data, and everyone was like, oh, how did you get this data? So interesting. And it generated thousands of views on LinkedIn. So it wasn't, using AI. I did that, but for some reason that was a kind of content that people wanted to consume, and they reacted to that, right? And so I think that's a little bit where we need to focus, and it's not easy, right? It's not straightforward, because if it was, it wouldn't be interesting, right? So there's always that catch.
So going back to what you started talking about, and I interrupted, websites, right? And you said that you have customers that want to build websites or want to improve their website, and they come to you and they ask for AI. Well, at least I'm assuming, okay, I want to use AI on my website somehow, on my business now. And you and you take a look at their web presence or their online presence and make an assessment, and realize that, well, there's much more basic. There are a lot of more basic things that you should do first before you think about AI. Do you want to elaborate a bit more on that?
Yeah. So actually, what I think this is building on a previous trend, which is people, in a way, they want to be more autonomous, independent, right? So in the early days, when there was, those early HTML websites, we wanted, if you wanted to update the content, you had to phone the developer or the agency. I want to introduce this content, please do it for me. And they would say, send me a CD with the content so I can update the website.
Floppy disk.
And then as CMSs and management, content management systems came into play, we now started giving this power to people. Okay, you can manage the content, you can go there and publish yourself, you can do it, you can do that process internally without having to depend on an agency, right? And so I think that was a quick win, but it's almost I see it as a trend where you want to be able to do more things yourself without being dependent on others, right? So you want to check the analytics on the phone while you're taking an Uber somewhere. You want to publish that content straight away. So all those things, I think WordPress in a way was clever and was able to present itself as a tool that allows you to do that. And now with AI, it's not like people are coming to us and saying, "Oh, I want to use AI." It's almost as they already have that in the back of their minds, but it's, how can I say, it's not something they're sharing with us directly. So it's almost as they see it almost as a secret tactic that they know of that many others are still not using, right? So I'm going to use AI to produce all this content, and I think at least a little bit in their heads they're thinking my competitors are not aware of this, right? So in a way there's this first mover advantage they think they have, right? And I think this ties back to a little bit what I was saying, that these tools also inspire people to do more, right? They okay, now I have this tool, I can perhaps go faster or produce more content or conquer more keywords or position or get more traffic, etc. So in a way, it's making some businesses invest, right? I need to invest in a stronger website, in a stronger content marketing engine, etc. So I think that's a little bit the good side, and I think the web is becoming stronger because of that, because there's more things happening, right? So of course there's also the other side, is the automatic content being produced, and I think we were saying before, sometimes on LinkedIn we can clearly see that content wasn't written by the person, it was written by a machine, you know?
Right.
But I think that's part of life from now on. That's something we have to get used to. I think the same thing in a way happens with books. For example, you have very, very good books. You also have books which are more, we have to say, not very well. They may be well written, but you can clearly see it wasn't the person writing them, right?
Okay.
So we see, politics doing biographies and stuff like that. And that's part, right? I think that's part of life from now on. Yeah.
Right. And I mean, I'm a tech person, right? And I work with tech, but on the other hand, I have to say that it's a bit upsetting. It's a bit upsetting to me that I open the book and I don't know anymore if the book was written by a person or not. That's a bit upsetting to me because I feel kind of fooled if I'm reading a book written by AI somehow. And but I guess that I mean, if there is an AI that becomes the best book writer of all time, I might enjoy reading those books and I might enjoy the content. So is that really bad? Probably not, right? So we might have AI authors somehow in the future that produce much better content than humans would ever produce, right? So is this a bad thing? Probably not. It's probably a good thing, right? So and then we will start maybe we start enjoying AI books and people books, and we can distinguish one from the other, a bit like art done by people, art done by machines.
Yeah.
It's a brave new world indeed. It's something new that we need to adapt. But maybe for our children, it's just going to be part of life.
Yeah, in one way, I think ideas are everywhere, right? So when we grab a book or an article and there's a good idea in there, I mean, I don't think we're going to be able to distinguish if it's coming from AI or if it was written by human. what we have to understand, and I think this, perhaps you know more about this than I do because you're an expert in the field, but for me, whatever's coming from AI is really coming from humans first, right? So the AI is, I think, at least very often is just relying on things that humans already produced, right? So
Right.
I really like that. I'm not sure if you've heard of this analogy of the self-licking lollipop.
Self-licking lollipop.
Yeah, exactly.
This is I believe it was Taleb that made a post about this.
Exactly. So
Yeah.
that has to do with, you know,
Now
AI is the
the
ChatGPT
ChatGPT was trained on the web or trained on the internet. Now, if
exactly.
ChatGPT starts producing content, next version of ChatGPT will train on itself, and that's a
Exactly.
self-licking lollipop.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
And indeed, that's true if you're talking about AI and limiting AI to large language models that are trained
Yeah.
on text that
Yeah.
is available on the web. Definitely. Yeah. And
Yeah. Yeah.
that's also a concern
No.
now today to train the next version of the large language model. What data are you going to take? Because if you're taking data generated by a previous version of the model, well, how are you gonna?
Yeah.
This is a topic already now, a research
Yeah.
topic, to make sure that that content is actually as clean as possible. And it was as much as possible not generated, but
Yeah.
it's a hard problem. Yeah.
It's a hard problem. And I think in the future, what we will see as well, and I think this is a little bit what's going to distinguish, in a way, great agencies from other agencies and great writers from other writers, etc., that they will have their own bots and tools and perhaps training
Mm-hmm.
data, and from those tools they're generating something which is of value for us humans, right? So
Mm-hmm.
um, you mentioned AI art, right? So I think we will see that in cinema, in
Right.
writing as well.
Yeah.
Uh,
I mean, the last episode of our podcast, we talked about Hollywood and how generative AI would disrupt Hollywood and the movie industry in general. And it's also quite it's also quite interesting because the our guest mentioned that our guest Kevin, you mentioned that, well, in 5 years you could make a Hollywood blockbuster for $100.
yeah,
So, which is
it's impressive.
quite amazing.
Yeah, yeah.
Mm.
But I think when it comes to websites, I think we will need to work harder to make them, more personal,
Mhm.
more interesting, because if you're going to be interacting with those websites, perhaps through a personal assistant, right? Or
Mhm.
perhaps through a voice interface, etc.,
Mhm.
you won't have the ability to scroll content, and to read articles. That's not what's
Right.
going to entice us, right? So
Right.
so when I hear about, let's say, To Impulse, for example, and I ask my personal assistant, "Well, what's this company doing?" and the AI will, in a way, spit out that information. Uh, we want to control that information, and we want to make it interesting, and we want to perhaps give next steps for people to explore more about this company, etc. Right? And
Mhm.
so I think, in a way, we're still very much in the infancy of all this,
Right.
right? So
Yeah. That's an interesting thing that I wanted to talk about too. It's a kind of a something that I've been thinking about since a few years, not even before ChatGPT came out. But first, I would like to ask you another question. Um, what is so? Let's take the web today, right? Let's say you have a customer, so you are specialized in the web and WordPress in the web. You help your customers, companies build their websites, maintain their websites. What advice do you give them in terms of, okay, let's assume that they made they have all the basics in place,
Hmm.
right? And I assume that you do that for your customers, right?
Yes.
That you do that for your customers. They have all the basics in place. And now, how do you see this? What advice would you give them? Okay, how can we take the next step using AI? What can I do? How can I benefit from this? In particular, how can my customers benefit from this? What
Yeah.
advice would you give me?
So I think there's several points we need to cover, but I think one of the points is it's actually important for any business to have at least one uh, people-facing person in the company. So like
Mm-hmm.
a person that is willing to speak for the company,
Mm-hmm.
is able to pitch the company, etc. Right? And so we
Mm-hmm.
see that personal brands, they work better than company brands, right? We see that
Okay.
Elon Musk with Tesla,
Mm-hmm.
Richard Branson with Virgin, right? They all have more followers than the brands itself, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's and that's one let's say advice we give, but it's not, we cannot take credit for that idea because it's not
Mm-hmm.
our idea, but we know it's something that works, is to have like a key person of influence that can speak for the company and is and maybe behind, maybe the author of blog posts, maybe the author of podcasts, etc.,
Mm-hmm.
right? So because it's, in the end, people buy people, and it's still important to have those, that
Mm-hmm.
face tied to the business, right? So that's one point.
Mm-hmm.
The other point, if you already have that, the
So
second
it's
point.
about having that person. It's about then creating content. Is that person should be creating content, at least presenting the content.
Exactly. So when that person comes to, let's say, comes to the market, what does the person have to say, right? What do we stand for? Who are we trying to help?
Mm-hmm.
What is our approach? What does the market doesn't know already that we know, right? I think also from, I think this is from OpenAI founder as well. When he's recruiting someone, one of the questions he asked is, what is something you know, but most of the people still don't agree with you?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. what,
Okay.
what is that something that you're almost sure, but most of the people, they they don't agree with you, right? And that's really where your opinion, your insight comes into play. Maybe you have an insight that most people don't have, and that's what you need to be
Mm-hmm.
broadcasting to the market, right?
Okay.
For example, it can be, okay, for example, we know how AI is going to impact us, so we want to make sure you know this, that, and the other, right? So I think that's one important step. The other part is, many, especially small businesses, they tend to communicate and they tend to message the market with product uh, features and data, right? And
Mm-hmm.
so if you're a skate shop, the natural instinct is to talk about your skates, and this is our skates, and this is how good they are. This is the size of the wheel, etc. So all
Right.
products and all
Characteristics.
exactly right. But we also know that only impacts a small percent of people in the market, right? Because perhaps
Mm-hmm.
there's only, on average, perhaps there's like 3% of the market is ready to buy the skate, but
Mm-hmm.
the other people are not, right? So I
Right.
think one important step is to kind of shift the communication, instead of in product focus, to be focused more on a broader topic, a broader conversation, right? For
Mm-hmm.
example, in coming back to the skate shop example, how doing something outside is maybe fun and healthy and whatever it is, right? So I think that's an important step as well, that businesses, they need to kind of shift their communication towards more emotional outcomes and things that people want to
Mm-hmm.
achieve. Coca-Cola never speaks about Coca-Cola, right? They
Right.
only speak about other things, right? So I think that's a, a step. And then maybe the third step is, okay, what is the content we can, from that place where we now know what we want to speak about, and this is a more open conversation, and we have a person who can appear to the market. What are like the content pillars, and what are the points we need to cover, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I think there's really tons of things to be done there, and
So
yeah,
you're mostly talking about marketing. So what you're talking about is marketing, a marketing message, and how do you speak to your customers, not necessarily the web itself, right? So what you mentioned could be on social media, or could be, or could
I
be,
think,
or is it the web? Is it social media? Is it a mixture of all?
yeah,
Because
I
what
see,
you just said could apply to a web, even if I don't have a website, or probably I should, but even if I
yeah,
don't,
yeah,
if I'm only on Instagram, I could still do what you just said, right?
yeah,
So
exactly.
give me some specifics about how does this translate to the web? Is this, you're
I,
talking about content like that you should, okay, you have the basics in place on your website. Now you're talking about, okay, I have a figure person, I have a front person, I am producing top of the funnel content, middle of the funnel, bottom of the funnel content.
Mhm.
And now I'm going to talk about that on my website. I'm going to have a blog, I'm going to have a podcast, or what is it that you suggest?
Yeah, so I see it as, like I said, conquering online territory, right? And
Right.
so that can be done through social networks, or it can be done through a website, or it can simply be done through a newsletter as well, right? There's
Yeah,
some businesses just relying on newsletter to build
right.
7-digit businesses. So, uh, but if we're thinking about the website, what we see is, for example, within the same industry, I like to
Hmm.
show my clients an example, for example, of a, an e-commerce that sells flowers, something simple. And I
Hmm.
show them, look, there's this shop, and this is how many keywords they're ranking on Google, and this is their how many backlinks. That means how many other
Hmm.
websites are linking to this site. Okay, and I show them like a simple e-commerce selling flowers, and then I show another e-commerce selling flowers, but with a lot more keywords and a lot more backlinks. And of course, it's much bigger business, right? And then I show a third example within the same industry doing the same thing, but even with more keywords and more backlinks. And that's where they kind of snap, and they see, okay, this is what we need to do. We need to increase the number of keywords we rank for. We need to increase the backlinks our site has.
Hmm.
This is what we need to work on. Now, the way you get there, maybe through, there's different tactics, different
Hmm.
methods. Maybe it's the podcast, maybe it's something
Hmm.
else, maybe
Right,
social networks, maybe. But that's the end goal where you
right.
need to get. And in a way, that's something every business needs to figure out. How can we get there faster? That's part of the
So,
mission.
and if somebody asks you, okay, should I use AI to do this, and how? What are there some AI tools that you would already recommend users to use? Do you use AI tools to help your customers achieve this kind of thing?
So we use, for example, we use GitHub Copilot in terms of writing code, in helping
Yeah.
writing as code. So that's something many of our clients, they don't know we use that, but we use that simply because it helps us, be more productive and happy as developers.
Yeah.
So
Good.
so that's something simple. Um, in terms of what tools can our clients use and should they use AI or not, I think my position is very uh, in a way straightforward, which is use as many tools as you can, use whatever you can, use all your resources,
Mm-hmm.
explore, try new things, go out of your comfort zone, and try as many things as you can in order to get there faster, in order to get to the
Mm-hmm.
goal faster, right? So uh, now, is this particular tool the best one? That's something each person needs to assess, because
Mm-hmm.
some people like this, some people like, Gemini or
Mm-hmm.
something else. But in the end, the tools are there. They're showing us, okay, this title will work best, this content length will work best, this
Mm-hmm.
meta tag, this schema will work best, etc. So I think those are important insights. And then what ideas can we generate and brainstorm? I think AI can in a way help brainstorm ideas as well.
Mm-hmm.
But this comes back to my previous point, where if you have the key person of influence, and if you have your communication pitch done and refined,
Mm-hmm.
you need to come to the marketplace with insights that the AI cannot generate, or that the AI will not out of the box generate, because like we said, most people still don't agree with you, right? That's where the
Right.
value is. When you're saying something that is like 37 signals, they're saying software as a service is a bad idea. You should we should not be paying monthly for software. They're saying we should pay once and use, and that's something catches our attention, right? Because
Mm-hmm.
everyone is changing and everyone is
Well,
charging a subscription these days, and we're thinking, well, this is different, so let me explore this.
it's not
So
it's not new though.
yeah, it's not new though, right?
Right. It was that happened already before there was software as a service, and well, there's still the licenses, right? You need to pay for the maintenance of the software somehow. Anyway,
Yeah.
besides the point.
But
Um,
I think this is an important point, which is, as we see new revolutions and iterations of technology. For
yeah.
example, in the browser, we're now able to run WordPress in Chrome, just client side, right?
Okay.
It doesn't have any storage, any database,
Right.
but so it runs on local storage, but you can run the whole software on the browser, right? And so as
How does that work? Is that
it's completely JavaScript,
WebAssembly kind of thing,
yeah.
or is it okay?
And so I think we will see also, large language models just client side as well, right? Maybe inside our watch or
Right.
something. So
Yeah, of course. I mean, they'll need to be smaller than the ones from OpenAI. The hardware will need to develop, but yeah, that's for sure. I mean, there's things that you could not possibly do on the browser that you can do on the browser now, like OCR, for example, you can do on the browser now, recognizing handwritten things, or extracting the text out of a picture of a piece of text. This can be done by the browser now,
yeah,
and it's quite impressive. So one thing that has been in my mind for a few years now is my wish to, for example, be driving my car or be sitting on the train. It doesn't really matter. And I have my headphones on or whatever. And I just read the news on my phone, and let's say I open my favorite newspaper, or one newspaper that I usually read, and I go and I consume the content. And I can actually interact and ask questions. Now, this is still not possible most of the cases, right? I cannot
yeah.
go and read I don't know, the New York Times
Der Spiegel.
or the Spiegel. Um, well, there are tools that can read the pages, but I cannot browse a website using my voice only, right? In an
Yeah,
interactive way.
yeah.
And do you think this is a thing? This is something that is going to evolve. The web is going to evolve into something that can be interacted with this way, or is this a completely different thing? I can think that you could have, I don't know, a kind of an app. So there is the kind of the app. Many newspapers have an app, right? And in principle, you could consume the content there, and you could install the app, and in theory, you could have an audio interface or like. But you'd have to have like an individual app for each newspaper anyway. And this is not what I want. I want to browse the web. I want to search, I want to open a website, and I want to read it, in this case, without having to interact with the phone with my hands. I want to just do it.
Yeah.
Is this a thing? Is this something that's going to happen? Or am I thinking this the wrong way? About this the wrong
No, I think you're absolutely right. I think we as a society, and that's basically how progress evolves, is we're more or less exploring in all directions, right?
Mhm.
So I think, for example, when the metaverse was very polemic, very, there was a lot of discussion around the metaverse. Is it a good idea, bad idea? A lot of people against it, some
Right.
people in favor of it. I still think the metaverse is something that the idea is there, but the execution is still lacking, right? So,
Yeah, it's
but
difficult.
I think it's still worth pursuing that idea that for me was more or less written down in that book, Ready Player One. That vision of a place where you can explore different worlds, build your own world. You have puzzles, you have friends, you have school, all inside this universe,
Mhm.
virtual universe. I think that's an idea that is still going to be pursued, right? And Facebook is
Mhm.
Meta is heavily investing in that idea, right? So
Mhm.
I think what you're saying is another one of those ideas that already in our minds, collective minds, let's say, and so it's obvious it's going to be pursued, and we
Yeah.
see companies applying for Y Combinator this year. Almost all of them are AI companies, right? And
Right.
exploring AI ideas. So we know it's
Yeah.
it's going to happen. I think also. I think what we may be missing is that the way you're thinking about interacting with that and reading the news, and it's still very uh, prompt. In a way, it's very much driven by prompts, right? And I think
What?
what we will
Yeah.
see is almost, like that movie, where you start developing a relationship with the AI, right?
With
And I
your
think
assistant.
with your assistants, right? I think that's you may like it or not, but I think that's where we're heading. And
Mhm.
for me, this is again building on a previous trend, which we see with smartphones. Everyone is spending a lot more time than we anticipated they were going to spend on mobile phones, right? And so I
Mhm.
think this is something that will happen with AI as well. Is we're
Right.
going to spend a lot more time interacting with AI than
Mhm.
we're anticipating, right?
Yeah. Well, I already anticipate this is going to happen, and that everybody will have their own personal assistant, more than one actually.
Mm,
And so it's not a question to me. I think it's not a question whether it's going to happen, is when and how.
when and how? Yeah.
I'm convinced of that. And I was just asking something much more concrete, like I want to browse the web. And probably the way I'm thinking about it is wrong, because the web uh, was not conceived for that, for browsing it using your voice. It was meant to be used in the browser, and that's what the standard is optimized for.
Yeah.
On the browser, on the phone now, it works, but it's also a browser. Now maybe there needs to be new standards, new ways of delivering content that are more compatible to that kind of interaction that can be consumed by an AI more easily, where I can actually ask questions and it's going to be easy for an AI to explore. Because right now, it's a sort of a patch situation. You've got, I don't know, you've got Google kind of indexing the web, and the web tries to optimize for it.
Yeah.
But and it's Google already tries to index the content and then answer questions based on the content that was indexed. But the content was not optimized for that, for answering questions.
Yeah.
It was actually meant to be read, not for you to build something on top that answers questions about it. And Google has been trying to do this for a long time, and it's getting there, right? It's getting there. But it's still patchwork, in my opinion.
Yeah.
It's still a challenge, and the more complex the websites get, the more noisy they get. So the bigger the challenge this becomes. So maybe what you need is a new standard, something that is not the web. And
Yeah.
as you said, the web is something that moves slow. So new standards are difficult. Right?
And I find it interesting the way you're thinking about this, and the way you're explaining it to me. I think it just shows how we're, in a way, you know,
Biased.
we're biased. We're
Yeah.
biased by our experience so far, right? And
Yeah.
that's really where. So innovation will come from, the young people now, that and they will not want to read Der Spiegel in the train. I'm sorry, but we're seeing it already, right? So
Like, you mean read like by looking at it?
yeah, yeah.
They probably want to listen to it or whatever, or I don't know.
But we see news consumption is going down, right? So people interact less with news, right? So uh, and I think that's where we're biased, because we're thinking in old
Yeah.
old
Oh, we
things,
are.
right? And
Reading the
we
newspaper. Maybe
yeah,
that's not going to be a thing anymore. Reading the newspaper.
exactly. That's where I'm trying to say, because for example, Netflix is such a powerful information platform these days,
Yeah.
and people are consuming entertaining but also educational content sometimes there, and they're forming opinions, and so and TikTok does the same thing, right? Although it's, you may like it or not like it, but it's something where people are getting a lot of
Mhm.
content from, right? So I think that's where the same. I think innovation never comes from where we're expecting it to come, right?
Mhm.
It's always a different thing that surprises. But maybe you're right. Maybe we need a new standard.
Something new is probably not going to be the web. It's going to be
Yeah,
something different where we consume content, and that actually allows us to consume content the way that I was thinking. When I'm sitting somewhere or I'm driving my car, I want to know about what's happening in Israel or
yeah,
right now. So how do I do that?
yeah,
Right? How do I do that without having my phone in my hands?
yeah.
And with just
But
by interacting with an AI, I
but
want to
if
find out what's
Mhm.
happening in Israel right now, and what is the Israeli government do about the Iran, for example? What
Yeah,
are
yeah,
the
yeah.
latest news on that? I want to know, and how am I going to consume that, right? And that doesn't exist. If I go and ask Siri, tell me what the latest stuff is about Israel and Iran, it's going to search the web. Well, I don't know. I'm going to search the web for you. And if I ask ChatGPT, it's not up to date. And even if it were, it would search the web again.
Yeah.
Now, there's a new thing that still needs to be invented that's going to solve this problem, right? And that's what I'm trying to brainstorm about.
But I think, let me try to explain this, which is you're thinking very much. based on your current experience, which is you're going to work and then you come from work and you want to watch the news to know what,
Whatever. I'm
to
going
understand
for a
what's
walk,
going. But maybe there's no work. Maybe a lot of people
or
in
I'm
a
going
few
for a walk
years.
outside. I don't know.
Yeah, but that rationale that we will want to know what is happening on the other side of the world. There's going to be different signals and different
Mhm.
channels for that information to arrive, right? And I don't want to get into sci-fi because I know that's not the point of this podcast, right? But
Sci-fi.
but my
No.
I think my point is a little bit that we're thinking in what already exists, while innovators and new startups, etc., they're trying to disrupt those old models, right?
Mhm. Right.
Mhm. And I
I
think
still think that this is a thing. If you want to actively consume information, you are looking for something for information. You want, regardless of the situation, that there must be something new that allows me to interact with an AI and get this information uh, without having to type anything on an app or doing a explicit search or whatever. But I might be wrong. Maybe
yeah
people in the future are not interested in that at all. They just consume whatever goes in that direction, and they get kind of tailored content. They don't need to ask for anything. It just is presented to them.
yeah
uh,
and obviously the right answer is we don't know, right?
we
But
don't know. No.
what I anticipate is, for example, with robots, you will have your own robot at home, so he will be able to tell you the news and walk you through
Yeah.
it, right? And maybe he goes on the train with you, so why not, right? And maybe he
Yeah.
goes running with you and tells you, uh, so I think
It tells me
I
you
think
are doing it wrong. You have to move your feet that way.
exactly coach you and stuff like that. So
All right. Uh, Great conversation, Nuno. Thank you. Thank you for being with us. Is there anything you'd like to add? Anything else you'd like to say before we finish end our episode?
I think
So,
uh, my and let's leave this here for the future,
mhm.
and maybe we can, in a few years, if not months, we will come back to this podcast, and
Yeah.
and I will say, oh boy, I was so wrong. But at the moment, I think websites are unlikely to become obsolete, right? So
Okay.
I think their relevance may evolve, obviously,
Mhm.
but with AI being with the advancement of AI, definitely they will need to be adapted and
Mhm.
provide more value. Uh, but at the moment, it's like if you're thinking in doing something web related, it's almost as you should almost double down because it's
Mhm.
still very very relevant, right? So
Right.
that's what I'm seeing at the
And
moment.
in order to for somebody to have uh, a great website and a great presence online, they should go to widgilabs.com and talk to you. And
Definitely.
uh, so thanks again, Nuno, for joining us today. Um, Thanks for the interesting discussion. Hope that we can talk again soon here. Um, Thank you for watching. If you're watching on YouTube, don't forget to subscribe our channel. If you are listening, follow us on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, or Spotify. Thanks again. Goodbye and see you soon.